Imagine living next door to a couple who seem like the perfect neighbors. They greet you with warm smiles, invite you over for a barbecue, and make you feel right at home. You'd never suspect that behind those friendly faces lies a dark and twisted reality. A string of disappearances, people vanishing without a trace, and whispers of something sinister lurking beneath the surface. This was the shocking reality in a quiet town in Missouri, where Ray and Faye Copeland, a seemingly ordinary couple, were hiding a chilling secret. What drove them to commit unimaginable acts of violence? What could possibly lead two people who had shared a life together to betray the very essence of love and loyalty? As we dive into their story, you'll uncover the harrowing details of how this couple turned from beloved locals to ruthless murderers. This isn't just a tale of crime, it's a disturbing exploration of the human psyche, of greed, and the lengths one might go to when desperation takes hold. Stay with us as we unravel the mystery of Ray and Faye Copeland, a story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about trust, betrayal, and the darkness that can dwell within even the most unsuspecting individuals. Are you ready to uncover the truth? Let's begin. In the heart of Missouri, where rolling hills meet wide-open farms, there lived a couple who seemed to represent the American dream. Ray and Faye Copeland had built a life together, sharing laughter, love, and the kind of companionship that many people hope to find. They worked hard on their modest farm, growing crops and raising animals, and their neighbors knew them as friendly and hard-working folks. However, beneath this surface of normal life lay a darkness that would shock the community and change lives forever. At first glance, they appeared to be just another elderly couple enjoying their later years. Faye, with her warm smile and kind nature, won the trust of everyone around her. Ray, tall and strong, seemed like a devoted husband who had spent a lifetime taking care of his family. But as the sun set over their farm, the shadows grew longer, hiding a terrible story waiting to be revealed. Aim. As we dig deeper into their seemingly ordinary life, we find ourselves pulled into a disturbing tale of betrayal, greed, and murder. It all began with a series of disappearances that left the local townspeople feeling uneasy. Friends and family members of the missing people began to ask, where had they gone? What had happened to them? Little did they know that the answers lay just a stone's throw away, hidden within the walls of the Copeland home. The investigation into the disappearances would uncover shocking truths, not just about the victims, but about Ray and Faye themselves. How could a couple who seemed so charming and caring be capable of such terrible acts? The more we learned, the more we realized that the Copelands were not just ordinary farmers. They were ruthless killers, driven by desperation and a twisted sense of survival. To understand the shocking story of Ray and Faye Copeland, we must first look at their early lives. Ray was born in 1914, and he grew up in a time when hard work was essential for survival. He was a man of the land, familiar with farming and all its challenges. Faye, on the other hand, was born in 1921. She was known for her friendly personality and caring nature. When they met, it seemed like a match made in heaven. They married in 1939, promising to support each other through thick and thin. Over the years, Ray and Faye had children and built their life together. They moved to a small farm in Missouri, where they hoped to create a better future for their family. However, as time passed, things did not go as planned. Their farm struggled, and financial troubles began to weigh heavily on them. While they tried to make ends meet, the couple started to change. The stress of their situation pushed them into a dark corner. They became desperate for money, and that desperation would soon lead them down a dangerous path. As the years went by, Ray and Faye grew older, and their financial troubles grew worse. Their once promising farm had become a burden, and desperation began to creep into their lives. The couple, who had once shared dreams of a bright future, found themselves cornered by mounting debts and dwindling resources. Instead of seeking honest work or help, they turned to a far darker solution. It all started in the late 1980s, when several young men vanished after visiting the Copeland farm. These men were not strangers. They were individuals looking for work, lured in by the promise of a job and a fresh start. The Copelands, with their friendly smiles and reassuring words, seemed like the perfect people to trust. But behind their warm facade lay a sinister plan. One of the first victims was 24-year-old Michael W. Moore. He came to the Copelands searching for employment, hoping to earn some money to support himself. But little did he know that the job he thought he was getting would cost him his life. Witnesses claimed to have seen him with Ray, and soon after he disappeared without a trace. Friends and family were left in shock, wondering what could have happened to him. As time passed, more young men began to go missing. Each disappearance raised alarm bells, yet the community struggled to connect the dots. The Copelands continued to present themselves as the charming couple everyone knew, even as they plotted their next move. Among the victims was 19-year-old John A. Dougherty, who also vanished after visiting the farm, looking for work. As the number of missing persons grew, so did the fear in the town. Ray and Faye's motives became disturbingly clear. They were killing these men not just out of malice, but for financial gain. They took out life insurance policies on their victims, collecting money after each disappearance. It was a horrifying scheme that twisted the very notion of trust into a weapon. Friends and family believed they were helping the Copelands, but instead they were unwittingly walking into a trap. The couple's farm, once a place of hope and hard work, morphed into a site of terror. The community, once filled with trust, began to feel the weight of suspicion. Neighbors whispered about the growing number of missing men, and a sense of unease settled over the area. What was happening on the Copeland property? Why were these young men never seen again? As the disappearances continued, law enforcement finally took notice. The local sheriff's department began to investigate the unsettling pattern of missing persons, focusing on the Copelands. They interviewed neighbors and friends, piecing together the last known movements of the victims. But Ray and Faye were clever, evading suspicion while their dark deeds continued. It was not until a brave young man named 24-year-old Billy L. Johnson managed to escape from the Copelands that the truth began to surface. After being lured to the farm under the pretense of work, Billy experienced firsthand the terrifying reality of Ray and Faye's world. It was held against his will, but in a moment of courage and quick thinking, he found a way to break free once he was safe. Billy rushed to the authorities and reported everything he had witnessed. His account sent shockwaves through law enforcement. Billy described the oppressive atmosphere of the Copeland farm, detailing how Ray had threatened him and how Faye had played a role in the deception. He spoke of the men who had gone missing, sharing his fear that he could have easily become another victim. This was the crucial information that investigators needed to take action. With Billy's testimony, the local sheriff's department was quick to act. They began to connect the dots between the missing persons cases and the Copeland farm. Detectives obtained a search warrant, and the tension in the air was palpable. The community, still reeling from the news of Billy's escape, watched anxiously as law enforcement prepared to uncover the truth. When the investigators arrived at the Copeland property, they were determined to find answers. What they discovered would change everything. As they searched the farm, they uncovered a series of disturbing clues that pointed to the dark reality hidden beneath the surface. Clothing, personal belongings, and items belonging to the missing men were found scattered around the property. But the most shocking evidence was yet to come. As the search continued, authorities dug deeper into the land surrounding the farm. It was then that they made the most horrifying discovery of all: buried remains. The realization that they had found the bodies of the missing men sent shockwaves through everyone involved in the investigation. The very farm that had once seemed but a peaceful place was now revealed to be a site of unimaginable horror. The investigation took a darker turn as it became clear that these deaths were not accidents or misfortunes. Ray and Faye had lured these men to their farm, exploited their trust, and then killed them for financial gain. The brutal truth began to unfold, and the community was left in disbelief. How could this couple, known for their friendliness, turn into such ruthless killers? Digging into the financial records, investigators uncovered the motives behind the murders. Ray and Faye had not only taken out life insurance policies on their victims, but they had also been forging checks and stealing from them. Their farm was not just a place of work, it had become a carefully constructed trap where they could prey on vulnerable individuals. As the evidence against the Copelands piled up, the stories from witnesses began to emerge. Neighbors recalled strange behavior and suspicious activity around the farm. Some even mentioned seeing men enter the property who never came out. The detectives found a ledger in Ray's handwriting that contained the names of the victims. Next to some of the names were highly strange notations. as if Ray had been keeping track of his crimes like a gruesome business transaction. With each new piece of evidence, the weight of the investigation grew heavier. It became clear that Ray and Faye Copeland had managed to hide their horrific deeds in plain sight, taking advantage of their reputation as harmless farmers. But now, their dark secrets were unraveling and justice was closing in. As the investigation unfolded, the community was left grappling with the shocking reality. How had they not seen the signs? How could an elderly couple, who had lived among them for so long, commit such calculated murders? The answers were unsettling, and the truth was far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. The Copeland farm, once a symbol of rural life, was now a site of betrayal and greed, where innocent lives were tragically lost. The arrest of Ray and Faye Copeland sent shockwaves through the community. The quiet, elderly couple, once seen as kind and harmless, were now at the center of one of the most horrifying crime stories the small Missouri town had ever known. As the investigation wrapped up, the evidence against them was overwhelming. The ledger, the belongings of the victims, the buried remains, all of it painted a damning picture of their calculated actions. But now it was time for justice. The trial began in 1990, and the courtroom was packed with reporters, family members of the victims, and locals who couldn't believe what they were hearing. Ray and Faye had become infamous, their faces plastered across newspapers and television screens. It was hard for people to reconcile the image of this elderly couple with the gruesome crimes they had committed. Many were still in disbelief. How could a man in his 70s and his wife, a devoted mother and grandmother, have carried out such evil deeds? During the trial, prosecutors laid out a case that was as horrifying as it was clear. Ray Copeland, they argued, was the mastermind behind the murders. He had lured the men to his farm with promises of work, used them to forge checks and steal money, and then killed them to cover his tracks. Faye, they claimed, was not an innocent bystander. She had helped keep the scheme running smoothly, cooking for the men, helping to gain their trust, and even keeping records of the victims in the ledger. Faye's defense team tried to paint her as a victim of her husband's manipulation, arguing that she had been forced to go along with Ray's plans out of fear. But the evidence told a different story. Testimonies from witnesses and the detailed records in the ledger proved that Faye had been an active participant in the crimes. The jury was not convinced by her claims of innocence. In the end, both Ray and Faye Copeland were found guilty of multiple counts of murder. Ray was sentenced to death, making him the oldest man in the United States to receive such a sentence at the time. Faye, too, was sentenced to death, though her sentence was later reduced to life in prison due to her age and declining health. The verdict brought some relief to the families of the victims, but the scars left by their loss would never fully heal. The impact of the Copeland case went far beyond Missouri. It became a national story. A chilling reminder of our appearances can be deceiving. People across the country were stunned to learn that a seemingly ordinary elderly couple could be capable of such calculated and heartless crimes. The case also highlighted the vulnerability of drifters and transient workers who often go unnoticed and unmissed until it's too late. For the small farming community where Ray and Faye had lived, the trial left a deep wound. Neighbors who had once shared meals with the Copelands, waved to them on the road, or trusted them with their livestock, were left questioning everything. How had they missed the signs? How had they failed to see what was happening right in their own backyard? The betrayal cut deep, and the town would never be the same. As for Faye, she spent her remaining years in prison, where she maintained her innocence and claimed she had been unaware of Ray's actions. She died in 2003 at the age of 82. Ray never made it to his execution date. He died of natural causes in 1993, at the age of 78. In the end, neither of them truly faced the full weight of the justice system, leaving many to wonder if the punishment had fit the crime. The story of Ray and Faye Copeland is one that lingers in the minds of those who hear it. It is a story of greed, betrayal, and the darkest corners of human nature. It serves as a reminder that evil can hide in the most unexpected places, even behind the friendly smiles of a seemingly ordinary couple. But this story also leaves us with questions. How many other victims like these men go unnoticed? How many crimes are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered? It's a call to action for all of us, to be more vigilant, to look out for the vulnerable, and to question what lies beneath the surface. The Copeland case may be closed, but its lessons remain. It teaches us the importance of justice, not just for those who are lost, but for those left behind. It reminds us that even in the quietest of places, darkness can take root. And it challenges us to never look away, to stand up when something doesn't feel right, and to fight for those who no longer have a voice. As we close this chapter, let us remember the victims, not just as names on a page, but as people who deserved better. Let us carry their stories with us, so that their lives, though tragically cut short, will not be forgotten. And let us take from this story a lesson, that the truth, no matter how hidden, has a way of coming to light. Thank you for watching. Do well to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell for more videos like this one. See you in my next video. Bye.